Parents of Reddit, what is something your child has done that made you think, I don't approve of that, but dang, that was really clever? My ex-wife decided that my son, 15, is no longer allowed to date this year, despite the fact that it was never a problem before. This coincided with him starting to date a girl down the street whose parents hate my ex-wife, though she claims that had nothing to do with it. She claims it is to ensure he gets good grades, though he has yet to have a problem in that area as a AB student. Instead of sneaking out and around, or getting mad, he went directly to the girl's father and offered to work for him in his shop. Guy runs a machine shop on his property, cleaning up, sweeping floors, organizing. So he got his first part-time job, which his mother was okay with, and in turn gets 3 nights a week where he is working where he gets paid to go out with the daughter. It was sneaky and underhanded, and perfectly orchestrated between my son and this guy's daughter, and I am extremely proud of him. Heck, that's just good problem solving. My brother once paid a neighbor kid, his same age, $5 to mow the lawn for him. When my parents found out, he justified it with they just asked for the lawn to be mowed and didn't specify who was to mow it. Although it was clear it was meant to be him, they just didn't say the exact words. 10 years later the family still has a good laugh at that one. This is actually a story about my mom and my uncle that I was told repeatedly as a child, from grandparents and mom and her brothers. My grandmother was a terrible cook, can verify, and often made liver and onions. My mom and my uncle Steve, the 2 oldest siblings out of 4, hated liver and onions and would never eat it. On one such occasion, they were behaving badly and sent to another room with their dinner plates and a ketchup bottle, so they cut up their liver into tiny pieces and shoved it into the ketchup bottle. A week later my grandfather made himself a sandwich and went to put ketchup on it. My grandmother never made liver again. So they cut up their liver into tiny pieces. I spent a few seconds trying to work out when they started performing surgery on themselves. When my kid was 8, we were having some behavioral problems with her, to put it mildly. Went to a therapist who talked to each of us individually and figured out the root of the problems. She was playing us off of each other. Despite being only 8, she had our number and was, unintentionally for the most part, winding her mother and I up over some minor thing, then watching with glee as we fought over what she wanted us to fight over. The therapist suggested we try an experiment. The next time we caught ourselves being manipulated, we were supposed to lock ourselves in the bedroom and refuse to engage with our little hellion. Her reaction was at once disturbing and enlightening. She tried to bash down the door to the bedroom, starting with the vacuum cleaner, and when that didn't work she went to the kitchen, got the pizza cutter out of the drawer, and tried to saw her way into our bedroom in order to keep the fight going. Holy moly, that sounds like a horror movie plot. Kid goes to kindergarten, but after a few months parents notice that the kid isn't really getting any better at counting, reading, or anything really. Parents ask if they can watch the kid for a day. School hasn't got an issue. Turns out the school puts the kids in 3 groups, red, yellow and blue. Whilst 2 of the groups are doing lessons, the third is always in the sandpit playing with minimal supervision compared to those in lessons. Kid had worked out if at every changeover he went to the bathroom, he could wander in and go straight to the sandpit. No wonder the kid loved school. As far as he was concerned, it was a place he'd been able to play in the sandpit for 2 months. Parents moved the kid to another school. Sort of thought the teachers should have noticed. Heard a ruckus down the hall and came in to see my younger son, 4 at the time, standing over my older one, 6-yo, like that famous Muhammad Ali picture. What's going on? We were boxing. 0-0, older son had a loose tooth and we were trying to get it out. Older son gets up, tooth is in the ground. Looks like it worked. High fives all around. Turns out the tooth he knocked out wasn't the loose one they were after, but a different one. Oh well. This is the response that has made me laugh the hardest. When my daughter started high school, she immediately started signing her own permission slips so she could wag when she got older and sign her own notes. Thing was, she didn't even take advantage of it for several years, but set up the long con from the start. My mom taught me to forge her signature. At 16, I started picking up my younger sibling and doing all the grocery shopping. I think I maybe used it inappropriately 2 or 3 times. Probably why she trusted me with all that. I was a good kid. For Christmas one year my then 18-month-old nephew got a set of trucks. His 6-month-old cousin got her hands on one and was playing contentedly. Nephew noticed, stood over her for a moment and very deliberately dropped a different toy a few inches from niece, who dropped the truck to pick up the new toy. Nephew snatched up the truck and scurried away. Niece realized she'd just lost her toy and gave him a sad look. Nephew hesitated, slowly walked back towards her holding out the truck, and grabbed the new toy out of her hands and ran off with both toys. He's not great at sharing, but the boy does strategize quite well. I thought the story was going to turn out wholesome, but this is even better. Not my kids, but my much younger cousins. Alex is 10 and Charlotte is 13. We were playing Monopoly and I know that Alex is a sneaky frick, so naturally I was the banker. At some point during the game Alex went to the toilet and on the way back he grabbed the 500s from the bank and accidentally dropped them. He bent down and picked them all up and gave them back to me and started to walk back to his seat. I stopped him and told him to empty his pockets. He pulled his pockets right out and gave me a smug grin. I let him go, because he apparently hadn't taken any. Eventually it was discovered that he had been conspiring with his sister, and when he bent down to pick them up he had passed a few 500s under the table to his sister. He then got past me undetected and they split the money when I wasn't looking. Well, those two are going places. In 5th grade, my kid's teacher would let the students retake any quiz if they got lower than a certain grade, but she gave the same quiz. My kid was deliberately tanking the first quiz, finding out what the answers were, and scoring 100 on the retake. That is just a real lazy teacher who doesn't want to be responsible for his low performance. My son was a kindergartner last year. He and another kid were playing during indoor recess and got into a disagreement. It escalates, and the other kid rears back to punch my kid. What does mine do? My 5-year-old turns around and moons the other kid. Both were sent to the principal's office. Both were given lunch detention the following Monday. The best part is, the way we heard about this story is the assistant principal paid my husband, a bus driver for the same school, a visit to his bus when he arrived to pick up the kids in the afternoon, before the kids had been dismissed. He notes her amusement as she's telling the story, and when she's done, she high-fives him. I'm fairly sure the whole staff had already heard about it. While my kid should not have shown his butt to another kid, I am to this day proud of how he managed to defuse the situation. He and the kid actually became really good friends after that. Malicious compliance and finding every loophole to a rule, and now he's a lawyer. Book report? He'll do it on a 1st grade book, in 6th grade, and analyze the living crap out of it. Can only get up to sharpen pencils? He saved his pencils from every other class to sharpen like 10 pencils a day in her class and take the most circuitous route to the sharpener. New rule: you have to walk straight to the sharpener and back. Didn't say you couldn't walk at 1 stroke 2 mph and sharpen in slow-mo. He has a future in IT. When my son was in preschool, age 4, he was very good at putting things together. The classroom he was in had a marble game that the kids loved to play, but was very hard to put together before you could play. Most kids would spend the entire playtime putting it together. My son could do it in about 2 minutes. His teacher told us during the parents' night that she caught him putting it together for kids in exchange for their cookies, etc. at snack time. Not a bad little hustle. Hustling at 4 years old. Bloody heck. My son loves reading. He's always really sneaky about reading after lights out, and although I have to foil his plans and tell him to go to bed, part of me is proud of him for liking reading that much. I was never caught reading like this, but one of my friends was multiple times, and her parents just kept taking away the book she was reading and never giving it back so she would never know the ending. I keep my 3-year-old's Halloween candy on a very high coat hook in the entryway, the highest of hooks, usually underneath her raincoat. It rained the other day, and she got a glimpse of that candy bag. While I stepped outside for mere moments, she got out the stepladder to reach it, but the ladder wasn't high enough. So she got her potty stool, put it onto the bench adjacent to the hook, and reached her candy goal. When I found her, she was casually eating Skittles and watching Sesame Street. She then offered me some Skittles. I was so impressed, I couldn't be mad at her. When I found her, She was casually eating Skittles and watching Sesame Street. She then offered me some Skittles. Perfect. I hated taking piano lessons as a kid. Our piano was in a room you couldn't see well from the kitchen or the family room, where our family spent most of our time. I was supposed to practice 30 minutes a day, but I had a tape of me playing the songs I was practicing that I would play, but would sit at the piano and read a book. Wasn't busted for weeks. I told my 7-year-old she could pick out some candy at the gas station. She came up with 2 small Kit Kat bars and I said no, you can have one. I watched her go put those back and grab the king-sized one instead. Well played, kid. This actually just happened last night. My 6-year-old daughter had YouTube taken off her tablet after I caught her watching a live at home birth. She is allowed 1 hour a night on her tablet. She came into my bedroom around 3 am. Her, Mom, how do you spell Taylor Swift? Me, why are you out of bed and what are you doing? Her, I couldn't sleep. So I pushed the kitchen chair up to the fridge and grabbed my tablet. I downloaded YouTube back on again and I wanted to watch a music video. I wanted to be angry, but this took a lot of follow through at 3 am. YouTube for Kids app. My cousin was a bit of a wild child. His mother, who was a widow, was a bit of an iron lady. It was the immovable object and irresistible force kind of conflict. This was back in the day before cell phones, when you had multiple phones in the house but only one line. He would be out and around the time of his curfew he would call home. When his mother would answer he would say, "I got it, Mom," like he was home, and just pick the phone before she did. She would then hang up and go to sleep and he would stay out all night. Pretty effing clever and ballsy. He died a couple years ago and we were swapping stories at his funeral. That one came up and his mother was floored. She had no idea. She is not the kind of lady who is easily duped. It made her laugh, which was good. Simply irresistible. My older 2 were playing on the trampoline with the kids from next door. I was playing nearby with my youngest son and was keeping an eye on the kids. Neighbor boy does a trick and now everyone else has to do the trick. My oldest said he didn't want to do it because he didn't want to get hurt. My middle son, 6 years old, says, "Stop acting like a girl." Neighbor girl took offense and told my son not to say that. My son sighs and says, "Fine. Stop acting like a bee then, Gavin." No idea where he pulled that one from. He's my only kid that appears to have a potty mouth and we don't even curse in the house. I thought it was pretty funny, but had to correct him while trying not to laugh. Correct context. So he's got that going for him. First, some context. We are a reading household. I would say that reading is my #1 leisure activity. I read about 50 books a year, and my husband isn't far behind. There does not exist a single room in my house that doesn't have books in it. My living room is packed with 6 floor-to-ceiling bookcases, all double deep. Even our stairway is lined with books. My son is 7. Last year he was in 1st grade, and much to our dismay, he couldn't really read, even though he was getting excellent marks in everything else in school. He seemed to be well behind other kids of his age in this one area, and as a result they put him in a special pull-out reading group. Every day, he would go with one of his best friends to a small separate classroom with the reading teacher so she could help him learn to read. After a full school year of this, his teachers reported little to no progress. We weren't really 100% sold on the whole smart kid can't read thing in the first place, but we were starting to become more and more suspicious about it. We decide to run a test. We leave books around strategically, ask him to read words here or there, and watch him as he plays video games and looks up YouTube videos. Kid can read, we are sure of it, and we become increasingly sure he can read really, really well. So, we are on vacation over the summer with extended family. Sister is studying for her economics class and chatting with him about it. My non-reading son picks up her college level economics textbook, opens to the middle and reads off the first page he sees, flawlessly. We knew it. We freaking knew it. As it turns out, my son, 6 years old at the time, spent an entire year pretending he couldn't read to everyone because, as he said, he didn't like doing the activity the rest of the class did while he went to reading class because it was boring and he got to go hang out with his friend and they gave them candy. My son is an evil genius. I actually have a lot of stories like this about him, but this one is by far the biggest con he has ever pulled off. When I was little we had a similar problem. I could read much faster than anyone else. Sometimes. So they thought I was faking it, etc. Being bad or stubborn. Turns out, because I was dyslexic, I learned to read by memorizing word shapes. And if they changed the font I couldn't read it. My father tells these stories pretty frequently about me. I was a computer geek in high school. Loved pirating games, music, playing computer games, hosting servers, etc. My father was tired of me using all of the house's bandwidth, so he set up some throttling stuff on the router or black holed some ports that I needed to use. So, I would turn on a man-in-the-middle attack and kill the internet modem and ask him to log into the router to troubleshoot. He would log in and then I would get his password to reset all the settings I wanted. Another one, but not nearly as cool. My father installed a P filter on all computers in the house. Cyber Nanny if I recall correctly, that would filter internet based off of an English text dictionary. So, if you just Google boobs or something, the filter would block the page. So once finding out how the software worked, I learned Spanish to get around the filter. Not a parent, but definitely helped raise my sisters since my mother and father both worked. I was 16 at the time and my sister was 10, and my other sister was 12. I was really sick and neither of my sister could use the stove. I told him they can have food only if it's microwavable or I'll make them whatever they want. I was so sick I was bedridden and wanted to watch movies but didn't have a TV in my room. I fell all asleep and when I woke up I was in the living room with ramen noodles on the table and I had my sister under the blankets warming me up. My youngest sister said you were shaking so badly so we both carried you down here and we made you soup. Eat up so you be strong. I cried and then realized we live in a 2-story house. How the heck did they get me downstairs? I am a 5'2" girl and I weigh 90 pounds now. I have always been small, but I couldn't have been carried by them, right? Anyways, they also were not allowed to watch TV past 5:30 p.m. but I'll let them that time. I love my sisters. 59 p.m. That's pretty late though. My 3-year-old wanted to take a bath the other day, but my wife told him no, it's not bath time. So he asks for juice and my wife gets him juice. When she comes back he has rubbed mud in our 1-year-old's hair, just covered. So guess what? It's bath time now. My daughter was doing her spelling work, asked her spell and write the word. She sits there for a minute thinking. Next thing I hear, Alexa, how do you spell word? Clever but not part of her school work. In the 3rd grade, my son had not moved to advanced classes yet, and was just breezing through classes and work. He wasn't shy either and would keep yelling out the answers in class before the teacher could call on other students. The teacher decided to try to quell this by giving him 3 sticks. If he shouted out an answer when she didn't call on him, he had to surrender a stick. If he did it with no sticks left, he had to skip recess. The very first day she enacts this clever plan. She goes on teaching and asks a question and my son immediately pipes in with the answer. Proudly hands her a stick and says I get 2 more, right? Not a parent, but evidently this is something my ex-husband did, as verified by his mom. Ex-husband was a precocious kid, and is now probably the smartest adult I know. He was in the principal's office one day, I forgot how he ended up there, and the secretary was setting the bell schedule for the next day's half day. Ex-husband asked her what she was doing, and she told him. He paid attention to how she did it. He thought it would be a good idea if they had a half day every day, so when the bell system was left unattended, he apparently set the schedule to shave a few minutes off each period, making each day a little shorter than the one before. It took the school a little while, I don't recall how long, to figure out what was happening, and to correct it. From what I understand, they never did figure out it was him. This happened 30 years or so ago, before security cameras ruined everything. He's a software engineer now, so he's clearly fulfilled his destiny. My 2.5-year daughter was in the 2nd week of kindergarten, and not really adjusted yet, so some days she really wanted to go, other days she didn't. Well, one morning I was lifting her upper body, from lying down to sitting, by her upper arms, like normal, while dressing her. She cried out and said I hurt her arm. She held it really limp for 20 minutes and cried tears if I tried to touch it, so naturally I got pretty worried I'd twisted something on accident. She refused to lift the arm or move it at all. Her mom came home from work and scheduled a doctor's appointment on the way. Cried when we put her in the car seat. Had to put her arm through the seat belt. And when we took her outside the doctor's. Her angry crying is different from hurt crying. So we knew she was in pain. We get in, and the doctor carefully touches and squeezes different parts of the arm. Does this hurt? Number how about this? Nope. Has her grab his fingers, both thumbs, and flail them wildly around. Did that hurt? Nope's big smile. She conned us badly, and she didn't go to kindergarten that day. Bought my 2 kids a Gen 1 iPod when they first came out. They were unobtainium in the UK for a while, but a business trip to Chile turned up an Apple store in Santiago filled with the things. So, maths class a few weeks later, and she and the other little moppets are tasked to devise a way of sorting songs genre, artist, length, country, etc etc. She finished after about 20 seconds, having written in her exercise book, open iTunes and it will do it automagically. Automagically is my new favorite word of ever. My daughter, when she was 3, decided to take a vase filled with decorative sand and pour it all over the wood floor, set up a reclining chair, put on sunglasses. We walked in and got really upset at first because of the sand all over the place, and when she saw our faces, she looked up at us with this heartbroken voice and said, "I wanted to pretend I was at the beach." We were still upset at the mess, but she was being creative and honestly didn't know it was wrong. We gently told her that we understand, but this needed to be a one-time beach trip and not to dump the sand again. Good on you to not freak out and punish her for something that she truly didn't know or understand to be wrong. While I was out at a rehearsal for some weird performance art crap, my kids, then 14 and 11, collected all the money and spare change off my dresser and in my bedroom and then the entire house and took the bus downtown and somehow managed to buy tickets to the Roger Waters' Dark Side of the Moon concert. They called me at set break and were like, "So yeah, we stole all your money and we're at the Roger Waters concert. Just thought we should let you know in case you got home and freaked out cause we weren't there. Gotta go. Second side is starting now. Please xbay." I was like, well frick me. Why didn't I do that? Not a parent but a brother of 2 twin stepbrothers. They're 12 and ever since they were little they've got their own language for things. They can have a whole conversation uses their own words. It's very weird but pretty cool. If you figure out the word, they just change it. A lot of twins apparently do this. My dad and aunt can. Daughter was being a sassy butt. I told her I don't like how you are speaking to me right now. She responded quickly with, "Well then don't talk to me." I was baffled. That's a pretty good response. 6. There's a kid in my son's class that is a total pain in the butt. Talks a lot of crap. Punches people and says, "Just a joke bruh." My son take a lot of crap. But after several warnings, the kid went in for his final titty twister. My son slammed him in the hallway, in front of several teachers, who promptly turned their backs as not to see the incident. A similar thing happened at football practice and the coaches turned away as well. I kind of feel sorry for the kid because his parents are a couple of real buttholes, which I won't get into here, but spending any time with this kid drives most people crazy. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.